Yeah, I remember that one clearly, actually. I'm surprised you. That's a long time ago, Jeremy. You're showing your age as well.
Kealy, very welcome to the podcast. How you getting on? How's lockdown treating you?
Yeah, good. Thanks. Listen, thanks very much for having me on. Cool initiative set up by you. So delighted to be asked, and I'm sure you'll have far more interesting guests than me on in the future. But bit of a
Hopefully,
lamb to
Beeps
the
can do
slaughter.
it one day.
Yeah, bit of a lamb to the slaughter for the first one. But I know, just happy to be involved, and as I said, cool initiative by you.
Yeah.
Lockdown, yeah, tough enough, but you're tough on everyone, isn't it?
Is it
So
is the club sending out fitness programs and things like that?
yeah, we've a couple challenges each week to complete, and then get back to send our scores back to Olin, who's running a tight ship. So I think this is our third week of them. First two have been pretty horrible to do. So Olin doesn't spare us in any way. So yeah, trying to
Just
keep taking over.
play up the ankle, you get out of it. So I was looking up kind of your stats. Last season, you got your 100th AIL cap, which I don't think there's anyone else in the team that has that many. Would I be right in saying that?
No, I think some people have it.
They just haven't been keeping close count.
Yeah, it was. I think it was either Whizzer or Peter McFarland who mentioned that to me.
Before the
But that was
Wanderers
like,
game in the Aviva, I remember it was your 100th game.
yeah, that was actually a couple of seasons ago though. I've racked up a couple more since then, so I don't know what I'm on now. But I'll wait for
Yeah,
Peter or Wizard to let me know
yeah.
the next one.
Our fact checking team's going to get on it.
Yeah, and
Uh,
you wouldn't doubt them, Jared. You wouldn't say they've
yeah.
missed the game.
It's pretty impressive though. But you started with humble beginnings. I presume 7 or 8 year old, and your dad brought you down to underage training. Would that be right?
Yeah, actually, my mum brought me down
Your mum.
to Greystone's training when I was 6, and I remember going down and I was actually in a pair of jeans and hi-tech runners. So, and I'm quite a shy person and a little bit introverted. So when I went down and immediately stood out as the weird kid in a pair of jeans and hi-techs, I just tried to run back out the gate. My mum was like, "Go on, get in there and get involved." And yeah, didn't make too many friends that day, so I made sure I had the right gear the following week.
That's brilliant. You were on the mythical Collie Dunn team. I was a couple of years older than you guys, but I remember like every time I turn around, there'd be like a new cup or League One. You had some guys that went on to be quite well established names in the club on that team, like right from the age of 7, presumably. Is that right?
Yeah, that team, I don't know what way it worked out, but 1990 seemed to
Something in the
birth
water, yeah.
a few good rugby players. So yeah, I mean that team was really successful, and it kind of instilled in us a love for, well, the club for starters, but rugby in a broader sense. So a lot of first team players came from that one age group. So you had the likes of Dylan Fawcett, Jamie Dempsey, John Campbell, Barry Traynor, Callum Rowden, Neil Cooper, Andrew Jeffers, all played on that team. And then you had a lot of guys who contributed to adult men's rugby on the second and third team. Your Brendan Boyle, Daniel Cullinan, Mark Brennan, Thomas Cruz, Conor Burtyrrell. And then you even had lads who would have played easily for the first team for a long time, but either through injury or moving abroad, it never happened. But lads like David Dunn, Ian Redden, Anthony Kealy, Ross Nicholson. So yeah, it was a fairly loaded team.
Sure it was, yeah. And like I think one thing, like whenever I was playing with anyone that had come from that team, the skill set was so high. Like it was like Joe Schmidt drilling you guys at that age. Like you were all able to pass and catch like unbelievably well. Like even like Tom Cruise as a prop could like spin past 3 people. Like it was an amazing achievement that you guys were able to like create that environment.
Yeah, I think a lot of that, Jer, was down to the coaches we had. And again, probably a bit of a coincidence that they all arrived down to get into the coaching in the same year. But you'd lads who played, at a very good level in their day. So Collie Dunn obviously led the charge, and he would have been responsible for a lot of that skill development you're talking about. And then we had Alan Keyes coaching, Joe Boyle, my dad did a bit. So a mix of good players, but then the coaching was excellent and probably a little bit forward thinking at the time. Like back in kind of 96, 97, say, passing wing to wing to wing wasn't really the Irish model. So they were big on that.
Ladders and hurdles out for you guys. It's like 10-year-olds like jumping over them, ducking under them, whatever. Like it was amazing. I would have loved to have been part of it.
Yeah, I'd say it looked funny at the start with like 7-year-olds doing ladder drills, but then when we started winning everything, it was kind of like, geez, maybe it's working.
One of the things that impressed me most about that team was like, even when, like, as you say, there's a lot of top quality players, but when they hit junior cup, senior cup, they still managed to like be involved in some way. Like they didn't just disappear off the face of the earth, Was that like, like was your dad dragging you down, being like, come on back, or how did that work out? Like, were you all friends or?
Yeah, well, we're definitely all friends. I'm not sure if there's like a particular formula as to why that happened, and you could just repeat it for every group. I suppose like winning had a lot to do with it. If you win a lot, you quickly become mates with everyone, and you love going training on a Sunday, and you want to stay involved. But like other than that, I'd say lads just realise how special it is to be part of a team, particularly your local team. And then like a number of us didn't get to play much between the ages of say 15 to 18. But I remember we went on a trip to France at age 17, and all the lads were there. Even the school players who hadn't been playing were there. Everyone showed up, and a couple of new guys as well who wanted to be part of it. So there was that connection of continuously staying in touch with that club team. I remember another trip to Galway, kind of maybe 15, and everyone came back for that as well. So you're right, there was definitely a connection between that team staying together and your school responsibilities as well. But it happened then again, probably at under 20 level, everyone came back and played for Greystones, because it's where they all wanted to be, back playing with our mates for our local club. So I'm not sure if there's a certain formula, but it definitely, you're right, it definitely was unique in that.
Yeah, one of the only teams that managed to stick together. You mentioned there playing at school. When you were in fourth year, I think you won the senior cup. So that meant that by the time you were leaving school, you were like seasoned, 3 years senior cup rugby with St. Michael's. You had a medal in your back pocket. Like in theory, you could have joined any club in Leinster, really. Like, you could have put your name in the hat and made a decent case for going wherever you wanted, but you chose Greystones, and I'm curious what that process was like. Were you thinking about it? Was it a straight shootout? Were you definitely going all along, or how did it work?
Well, firstly, I definitely couldn't have chosen any club in Leinster to join. It went well for me in fourth year, but fifth year didn't go as well, and then sixth year was pretty bad. So maybe it started off well, but by the time I was leaving school, we hadn't achieved that much. But but that kind of recruitment side goes on, regardless of whether you've won a senior cup or not. There's plenty of brilliant players who haven't won one or didn't even maybe make their senior team, and they end up being far better adult men's players than some of their counterparts in school. So it's kind of a natural thing that a few Dublin clubs made contact, but that was never a question for me. I wanted to play adult men's rugby, but I only wanted to play for Greystones. And I think what became clear to me early on was this notion of getting a couple of £100 to play for another club that's a little bit mad to me. Like, firstly, I know a lot of lads who kind of joined a club for that under that promise, and firstly, a lot of them never even saw it. But secondly, and probably far more importantly, the passion I would have had for Greystones is worth a lot more than £100 per game or something like that. So like, I think it's lost on people sometimes that you can't forget that if you're any sort of a decent player, it's probably because the investment your club made in you as a youth player. Like, that's the primary reason that you're in any way a decent player when you're older. So I think sometimes people seem to forget that. So I suppose there was a loyalty there for me to all the kind of volunteer coaches that I came up with through the age grades and everything the club gave me. So
it goes back to your age team and the culture that they built, and you wanted to be part of it later.
Exactly, yeah. And your home club, I didn't want to kind of throw it back in their face a little bit by moving for a small amount of money, again, assuming you ever actually get it. So, and I suppose to play with people I don't know for a town I didn't grow up in, that's just my opinion, but I'd feel strongly about it.
Oh, lucky that you have that opinion, because the club certainly got a lot out of you. Um, how did they manage your expectations when you first came down? Like, because I don't think that you went. Did you go straight into the firsts? Did you play 20s for a little bit? Like, you definitely were playing seniors your first year out of school. Is that right?
Yeah, so I went down, and I think in kind of August time, before the seniors would have had their league games, I think I had a couple of 20s games. One of them was a friendly against De La Salle, and I missed a kick in front of the post in the last play to win. So not a great start, but um, I know the seniors are playing their Leinster League games, which is the warm up tournament before the AIL tournament, and they played 2 games of that. And I don't think they'd gone very well. So then I got in for the third Leinster League game against Belvedere in Belvedere. So yeah, went in quick enough, but probably off the back of a couple maybe poor results for the first team. I remember they got beaten well the week before by UCD out in Greystones. I remember John Cooney scored a hat-trick in Greystones that day. So they were off the back of a couple of heavy defeats, which probably gave me an opportunity to get in. And once I got in and a couple more lads came back, we got a couple of results which helped me kind of manage to stay in for a little bit. So yeah, the first year was in at the deep end a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly was. Like, because I've been talking to other guys, say, they would have joined the senior team, maybe like there was the last of the old guard was still there, but when you joined, like, it was like a shark pit, or shark tank, whatever that. I'm not used to being in these environments. Yeah. You had like Bull, you had like Stuart Abbott, Jamie, Barry Holmes, like Ben Armstrong, guys that were very, very old school in their approach. And you were an 18-year-old kid coming in. Like, how was that for you, like joining them?
Well, funnily, as you're talking there, that's come full circle now. Like when I got in, the average age of the team would have been.
You're the shark.
Yeah, but when I got in, the average age would have been up near 30, and there are very few young lads. Whereas now on the current team I'm on, there's very few who are 30, and most of them are very young. So between the first team I joined in 2009 to the current team, some of my teammates could be dads for some of the lads on the team now. There's that much of an age gap. So, but yeah, like joining in 2009, it was tough in a way because I was so, kind of young and eager, just finishing the leaving cert, and you're going for points with lads with kids and mortgage stresses, and there can be a bit of a disconnect. But in fairness, that's all in theory. In reality, it wasn't an issue for me because those lads you mentioned there are brilliant lads. And I love the old school element that they brought. Very much part of the generation of, say, real club men. They die for the club, never miss training, fighting through injuries just to play on a Saturday, always socialised with the team afterwards. You know the type. And like weirdly, myself and Brendan Boyle used to do ball boy for these lads when we were 13 or 14. So in a very weird way, I'd be introduced myself in the early days to them when I joined that squad. But in my head, I knew, obviously already knew who they all were. So there's a little bit of kind of trepidation in Jesus, that's Dave McKechnie. He played for the Ireland clubs last year. Or, geez, this is Rob Conley I'm training with. He was in the Leinster setup a couple of years ago. So at that time, I remember just definitely delighted to be involved. But as you said, they're great lads. I've actually stayed good mates with a lot of them. The likes of, as you said, Ross Ballan, Barry Holmes, Ben Armstrong, Peter Hipple, Stu Abbott. We're all close mates, and we try and meet up a couple of times a year. Although the last time I met up with them was in August, just gone there, I think. And they were talking about things like, oh, I'm putting a bit of money away for this brilliant golf trip for my 50th in the States in a few years. And I was like, what? Like, how old are these lads? I've only just turned 30. So, but no, they're great lads, and was class joining up with them in that first season.
Yeah, it's like leads me in here. Like you had said that you like became kind of good friends with them, which to me when I first joined the senior squad, you would we're probably about 21 then, I'd say, maybe 20. And like immediately, that's only 2-3 seasons, and you were like an established member. You were like the heartbeat of the team, very young, very quick. I remember a training session once where like you were so headstrong about how you wanted to play, and Moose had a different opinion. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah, I
Do you
do.
remember
Yeah.
that session?
You have a great memory. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, do you want to tell us what happened?
Uh, yeah, I remember that one clearly. Actually, I'm surprised you do. That's a long time ago, Jeremy. You're showing your age as well.
30s.
No, and Kevin or Moose as he's known he's a great lad. He lost his way for a couple of years there where he joined Sea Point, but he wised up and came back to us. But yeah, that time I think it was a little bit of a row in a training match. I think I was playing 10 at the time, and I felt we were predictable in attack and a bit slow to get going and easy to defend. And for context here, Reggie being the head coach was saying to me as an out half, we need to get going here. You've licensed to do whatever you want or whatever you see. So we got a penalty in the middle of the pitch, and I happened to have the ball as the penalty was awarded, and I thought the opposition, half of them were on the ground, the other half looked disinterested. So I ran to the mark to take it quickly, and Kev was shouting like, slow it down, like no rush, slow it down, kick it to the corner or something like, which meant when I ran to the mark, none of my teammates were clued in or quickly ready to go with me, because Kev has kind of taken the wind out of their sails a little bit. So yeah, I just said listen, I'll decide when we're going to go fast or slow, and when I make that decision, you better be ready to go, because if you aren't on my page, then it's going to be a problem. Now I may have used slightly more colourful or aggressive language. I think I commented on the fact that he just wanted a rest and he was tired, which didn't go down that well with him. But as I said, he's a great lad, and after the session, he popped over to me, and he was, in the way he talks, he was like, "Okay, kid, we'll back you next time. I'll be there."
Yeah, he would absolutely. I remember Bull coming up to me in the gym the next day, being like, "I heard Kealy and Moose were going at it." I was like, "Oh yeah, it's brilliant." But like,
but
I think
the key there, Jeremy, is you'd never talk down to someone in a situation like that. Like, that wasn't me having a go at Moose for the sake of it.
No, to wear your heart in your sleeve.
That was me saying, look, we need to spark our attack. We're not scoring enough points. Sometimes it can help if you take those unstructured opportunities. So you and the rest of the players, you saw the row, but there's a lot of thought in behind that. And when I explained it to Moose, he was right on board. But you'd never snap at someone like that for a reason. You'd quickly find yourself ostracized from the team. So it's for the good of the team, and don't forget the coaches were trying to push as well. So like, I'm sure it looked a little alarming for the likes of you looking on, but there's context there rather than, oh, he's just having a go at lads. That's
exactly what you want for the team. You want everybody buying into it, and trying to put their best foot forward. And like, you were probably 21 at the time, and like that kind of enthusiasm really bleeds into the rest of the squad. I remember my first game, the first time I was ever picked for a senior game. There was a scrum half apocalypse, and there was no one left. And Reggie asked me if I'd play, but I was so nervous before the game, terrified, like absolutely terrified. And you'd said that you'd meet me in the training on the Thursday early, like you'd like come down at 6:00, and we'll go through all the different plays or whatever like that.
Yeah, I remember.
You said there's nothing to be nervous about. Like, what do you expect? Reggie's not asking you to throw into the line out. He's not asking you to go in the front row or anything like that. Like, you're just playing scrum half, what you've always done. And like, that level of insight, calmness, and direction from a young player like that was hard to come by. And like, I think you were building and building and building, and you were becoming that leader in the team until something bad happened. You had a horrific injury a couple of seasons later. What happened there? Like, that's kind of like unfortunately one of the things you're most well known for now.
Yeah, well, sorry, I might just answer your example there of giving you a dig out or helping out teammates first, because like, you're asking about a young player finding their voice, and I think loads of factors go into that. The position I played probably meant you couldn't afford to be softly spoken, which is something I try to encourage young players on today's team. Like, for the team to work, there can be no snobbery towards young lads, or lads who've just got into the team and mightn't have a huge number of caps. But if you play in a key position, particularly 9 or 10, or like you and I were playing that day, or 15 or hooker, your job is to direct the team around the pitch. So it's not really acceptable to just kind of ease your way in, because the team will suffer. So you're in the team now, so you have to perform your roles, and in some positions that means demonstrating a bit of leadership regardless of your age or experience. And that's the way I would have looked at it, and still look at it that way. If there's a young guy on the team now who wants to let it roar at me to get into position, or give me a bit of feedback, like I'd be annoyed if they didn't, because that's how a team works. You work around each other on the pitch, and anyone who isn't receptive to that, or has an ego whereby they wouldn't take direction from someone just because they're young or inexperienced, they'll quickly find themselves out of the team. So I suppose the real answer to how I found my voice early on is probably that obsession with winning, I suppose, and a lot of lads have that. But you're just so mad to win games, and you detest losing so much, that when something is, when the team is doing something and you're not doing it very well, and it's contributing to losing games, you hate it so much that you just feel you can speak up, and I can help, and I can contribute to some improvements to the team. So that's probably where the voice really comes from. And it's great, the current team I'm on, there's young lads like that as well, and it's really beneficial. So I probably had another couple.
That winning, you'd said, I had this conversation with you years ago. My underage teams, like, literally we'd lost, I think from the age of 13 to 15, I lost every single game I played. Like, just, I got so conditioned to losing games, and it does seep into your psyche. You're almost expecting to lose when you're going onto the pitch. You had the exact opposite experience as a young guy, and in school, winning was very much part of your expectation when you went out onto the pitch. And like, it was definitely noticeable in training sessions as well. Exactly what you just said.
Definitely expectation-wise, yeah. I'm not saying we won every game. I did as a young fella, but like, I think
to win the game,
yeah,
regardless of the opposition or conditions involved.
Yeah, or at least put your best foot forward. So,
yeah.
I had probably been helped because I'd captained every team I'd been on to that point. So finding your voice wasn't as difficult, but it did come from that kind of, it's about winning in my eyes. I know everyone says it's about playing with your mates, but if you're losing the whole time, you're not as quick to go for beers, or get down to training.
Injuries as quick.
But if you're winning, you quickly become mates with everyone, don't you? So that was my mindset. And
you captain of your under-20s team?
I captained them a couple of times, but I didn't get to play with them enough.
You're playing seniors.
Yeah. Now we myself and the likes of Dale Fawcett, so we tried as much as we could to double up, but I think there was a rule at the time: you couldn't start on a Saturday and then for the first, and start for the 20s on a Sunday. So a lot of the time you'd go down and sub, but then you were kind of taking some guy's position on the bench who'd been training all week, or so it was a strange dynamic. But no, that's where the kind of finding your voice question is there's loads of factors in it, but a lot of the factors we touched on there probably led to it. And then you asked a question there about an injury, so it's not that I want to
fast forward a couple of seasons, and you were the man, you were the face that runs the place, and you had a horrific injury. It was a training session against Wanderers, is that right? A training match.
Let's kill that narrative that I was the man or the lad running. That's not true at all. But I looked up to loads of lads on those teams. So that was in 2014. So I would have been 23 then. But yeah, a training match against Wanderers, which all seems to be the way. They're never in important games where you're the hero for scoring the last minute try or something. So I had a bad leg break that was probably worse.
Do you remember the sequence of events?
Oh yeah. So usually in these games, it's kind of like, you get 5 attacks and then we'll switch over, and then we get 5 attacks. So Wanderers were attacking us, and typically when there's a knock on, or the play goes dead or whatever, the coach will blow the whistle and go, right, that's one of your attacks done. Let's reset with a scrum over there and have your second attack. But so we were defending, and I remember running up in the defensive line and intercepting the Wanderers pass, which usually would have triggered the double whistle. Right, that one's over. But they kind of let it go. So I just started running towards the other end of the pitch. But I was kind of looking back, going, the whistle should be coming any second. And one of the Wanderers guy was like, well, Jesus, if there's no whistle, I'm going to go chase him then. So it definitely could have been avoided, but these things happen. But yeah, basically he kind of tackled me from behind, all his weight on my back, and it was kind of winter pitches at the time, and my foot kind of got stuck in the mud, and then his weight just kind of pushed me forward. So yeah, not great memories there. But
the actual was it a break, a tib fib snap, or?
So I won't bore anyone with like the details, but basically,
and there's a lot of ankle consultants watching today.
Really?
So.
Okay. Actually, I think some of the lads have had this injury since, or one similar, so maybe it'll make sense to listeners. But if you can picture, my foot is there, it dislocated in that way, and then my fibula broke that way. So everything up the middle of my leg basically kind of got torn to pieces, which, a dislocation I could have handled, a broken fibula I could have handled, but the two of them going different ways ended up called a syndesmotic tear or syndesmosis, which was the real problem. So yeah,
that's feel queasy thinking about that.
Yeah, it was a bit like I remember looking down and it was kind of coming out my sock, and I remember looking down and just seeing kind of things not where they're meant to be. And in fairness to Cameron McKeever, he just lifted my chin back up so that I couldn't see it. So yeah, so
that begun what, 2 years, 3 years of recovery?
3.5, yeah.
3.5 years. What was going through your head over those 3.5 years? Like, how on earth did you keep the motivation up? Like, how many surgeries did you have?
5.
5 surgeries.
Yeah, so I don't know. That's a difficult. I'm not sure how to answer that simply. Like, it was definitely tough. I just started working with KPMG as a trainee accountant, and basically missed a year of work, missed a set of exams, which set me back. Was trying to play catch up.
You couldn't go into work with your ankle, obviously, yeah.
So I did about 6.5 months on crutches, which meant I couldn't really go in. And then I went in. I remember, you ever see those little scooter things that people on crutches have? So I was on one of them in the Dart into Connolly, but it wasn't really sustainable, so I had to come back, and then I needed another operation. So yeah, it really kind of messed up my start with work, which was far from ideal. But I suppose and loads of lads will tell you this, it's the mental side of it. It's the sitting on the couch all day, not being able to reach the remote, needing everyone to do everything for you. I remember my sister trying to help me up the stairs to bed, sliding along the hall floor to the bathroom and stuff. Like, it's that side of the physical pain is one thing, but it's the kind of mental side of it, I'd say. So yeah, five operations and then a million rehab sessions. But I should point out as well, like, I had a brilliant team around me, in fairness, and even though the injury was a lot worse than initially thought, like, I used to go to Cameron 5 days a week. He made himself available to me, which was amazing. And then 3 days a week I went to him, and 2 days I used to go to a physical therapist out in Clontarf before work. So myself and Andy Mitchell, who was injured at the time as well, we'd set off at 6 a.m. and go out to Clontarf and run on this kind of anti-gravity treadmill for an hour, and then a gym session. So towards the end, I got a bit of help from Enda King and Santry Sports Clinic as well. But the big ones were the local guys, the guys connected to the club, being, Cameron McKeever, Olin Savage, our S&C coach. So they really got me back playing, because, the surgeons weren't too keen, my mother wasn't too keen, and that kind of thing. So I am massively appreciative of Cameron and Olin in particular, and I think they know that.
Yeah, absolutely. Did you ever consider just packing it in? I mean, you had a million reasons to do it. You got work going on, you're like, I don't know how you managed to stay motivated to come back. Like, did you ever think about just finishing up? Was it ever a thought?
Yeah. As I said, when I'm in for consultations with surgeons with my mother, and we had three surgeons saying, it's rebuilding your leg to walk and throw your
That's
kids
the
around
goal.
the pool
Walking is
in,
the
in
goal,
20 years,
yeah.
not to be playing on heavy pitches. I remember one surgeon being like, you're not the biggest fella, so if a big lad comes and gets you, your ankle isn't built to withstand that. But so yeah, to answer your question, definitely thought about it, yeah. But now I look back and kind of annoyed at myself for even thinking about packing it in, because I have such a different mindset now of I never want to stop. So it's weird looking back, but I suppose credit goes to the lads for keeping me involved. I still had a lot of friends on the team through those years that I missed. And I know like a new coaching unit came in, but I played against Kevin Lewis teams for years before that, so I knew who he was, and he remembered who I was. So he said to me fairly early on that he wanted me to contribute throughout the year at the time. So at that time we all thought I'd be back within a year. So, but it didn't turn out that way. So the first year I helped out a bit with the out half who was playing that year, a guy called Kurt Strachan from New Zealand. So I did kicking sessions with him on a Wednesday evening, and then the second year Kevin asked me to do a bit of video analysis. So I'd send him, I'd watch the game the lads played and send him my thoughts on a couple of areas that I thought we could improve on. And then the third year probably is what you're referring to in I was probably struggling a little bit more mentally then, so I didn't really stay connected with the team the third year, because I was kind of at the point of how am I still not back and where is this going. I was on my way for a fifth surgery, so I didn't really want to be around the team as much, but obviously I was still going to all their games, just wasn't contributing as much. But
yeah,
as I said, I was able to stay in touch with them because we have such good players in terms of we've such a good welcoming group in Greystones. I think it's one of our real strengths as a club. So the likes of Robin O'Sullivan, John Campbell, Barry Lynn, Paddy Gagan, Bobby Clancy, they're all my mates for years, so it was easy enough to stay in touch with the team then. And even the new lads who joined, they quickly realised the culture in the club and integrated in, so we got to know each other quickly, which even though I wasn't necessarily playing.
What was your first match back?
First match back was Monkstown, which was actually another training match, which was ironic. No. And I was going, oh, Jesus, no. So, yeah, Monkstown in a friendly on Thursday night. So, yeah, I was proper nervous then. My mum in particular was kind of freaking out. She's never missed one of my games, but I don't think she went to that one. She just wanted to know he got through it, and then she started coming to them. So, myself and Cameron said if I could get 15 minutes near the end, maybe get hit a couple of times and build my confidence slowly, that'd be great. But classic Kevin Lewis style, he came to me on the Tuesday and was like, I'm thinking of starting you in the centre on Thursday night, so I was definitely not ready for that. But I got on for the last 15 minutes actually, and by pure luck, the ball kind of bounced my way a couple of times and I scored a couple of tries. Your brother Andy kicked past me for one of them, so it was obviously great to get back. And when the game goes that way for you, your confidence kind of comes back a little bit quicker than possibly I was expecting. But thankfully there haven't been too many issues since, so yeah, glad to have that kind of period in the rearview mirror.
Yeah, it definitely makes you appreciate what you have now. And a couple of seasons later, maybe the next season was, I guess, the biggest accomplishment for you in a Greystones jersey. That was winning the AIL.
Yeah, it was actually that season. That season I came back.
That was that season you came back, was it?
Yeah. So
okay.
we had a brilliant team. So yeah, it was easy to come back. Yeah.
But what was the what were your memories then of that season winning the AIL? I mean, there's only a handful of guys that get an AIL winners medal. Like, they don't come around very often. Did it make it all worth it?
Yeah, I think so. Kind of goes back to, we were talking about winning earlier, and it's just it's all you're concerned about. So when you get there, I think it makes it all worth it. And I've played with loads of unbelievable Greystones players who never got to win a league medal. So yeah, I think it made it worth it. Memories of that season, just a brilliant team. No weakness in any position. A very young average age, so they probably hadn't got the pain of being relegated a couple of times like I had, or things like that. So the key that year actually, and the reason it's not as easy to replicate, is because our injuries. I think we completed the season using just 24 players, and like, that's unheard of. So we got great consistency out of our brilliant players. You know, I know my dad is in a role of director of rugby up in the club, and the Leinster branch contacted him going, you know, there must be something wrong. You've only recorded 24 players for the whole season. And he was going, I know that looks frightening, but it was just the way it worked out. So
They thought we were like fudging the numbers or something.
Yeah, I think so. But like, that's not as sustainable, and you know,
no, it was a very lucky. Yeah.
There is a bit of luck on your side there. So I think that year as well, we won some. I think we won an award from a referees association about being the best team to ref and the most hospitable club. So I think one of our players, Jack Keating, won an Ulster Bank League award as well for our division. So, and we won the Leinster Senior Shield as well that year. So in general, just an amazing year.
Everything went our way.
Yeah.
Not too long after that, you were officially made club captain. You've always been the same player, though. I remember my brother telling me a story of an under-20s game, and there was a huddle during the game, and you said you were addressing the squad in some way. I don't know what you were saying, you know. But Greg Lynch was the coach, and he was coming over to the huddle, and he had a head of steam up with his cap on, and he was ready to absolutely let fire at everybody. And he came over, stopped just before the huddle, listened to what you were saying, nodded his head, and walked back to his seat. So you were always an incredible leader, but officially becoming the club captain of Greystones, like how did that feel, and how did it come about? I mean, did you put your name in the hat, or did you get a phone call, or?
Well, firstly, I think it's important to clarify, like that Greg Lynch episode, again, it's like what I was saying with Moves. It's very much a collaborative thing. Like I don't want to get the impression that Greg was trying to speak and I was kind of going, no. Like the context there is that was the Macquarie Cup game, which is, you know, a knockout cup competition at under 20 level, as you know. But we were about 70 minutes into the game at that stage. So a coach isn't going to be able to coach you. You know, like, lads' legs are heavy. It's kind of like a couple of things we need to do, lads, to get home here, rather than, you know, let's change a game plan or there's something huge. It's not like a halftime talk or a before the game talk. And Greg and I get on, and Greg and I get on great. So it was obviously nice to know he was coming in to say the things I was in the middle of saying. So the context there is important. But yeah, the captaincy thing. So it was obviously a class honour to be appointed club captain. I think I was close enough, or I had been asked would I be willing to take it when I was quite young.
I remember that I went down to a vote, a player vote or something like that.
Yeah, I actually don't think that vote went ahead in the end, because I was told the year after that, you know, that vote, it hadn't been fully counted, but I was going pretty well in it. But that, in fairness to people, there were lads who were away who didn't get to vote, and then other lads who were thinking of retiring who they weren't contacted for a vote as well, and it was difficult to kind of conclude on who deserved a vote and how to get a vote from everyone in the complete squad. Would you include just the seniors or the seniors and J1s, because you didn't know who'd be on the seniors at that point of the year? Like, I actually remember in school as well, we had a similar system that our captains were determined using voting as well, but the same issue kept arising. So I don't think it's the fairest way of deciding. So in the end, I think Reggie, as head coach, made the call, which is completely fair and probably a much better way of doing it. And he went with Ben Armstrong that year. He was a great captain, and he's a great friend to this day. So,
but I mean, to think that you were in the running at probably 20 years old shows that, you know, you always had it in you to be captain, and you deputise and things like that throughout your career before being made captain, wouldn't you? You know, if you had to step up to the mark, you'd do it.
Yeah, like I'd captained the team a good bit the year before, because as in the year before I was first asked to do it.
I think pretty much the whole season Dan Mannion was injured, wasn't he?
Sorry, you're talking about the year before I was officially captain. I'm talking about the year before Ben was captain, when I would have been very young. Like, Barry Holmes was captain, but he had a collarbone injury and Ben had an ankle issue, I think. So I was comfortable enough in that role by the time I got it, despite, you know, initially getting it quite young for a few games.
So
But I would
you
have
led the
felt,
team out before in the AIL as
yeah, a few times, yeah.
like,
But
okay.
again, there's context there. Like I would have felt
Yeah,
at ease in that role because I've captained teams before, but there was loads of leaders in that team that made things a lot easier than me, like Rob Smith, Conor Cleary, these kind of guys. So it was easier than maybe it sounds. So, but on that point, Jeremy, I'm not sure age should play a part in
yeah,
captaincy
agree. Yeah,
selection,
yeah.
and that's one that's all. I think that's kind of always frustrated me. Like when a captain moves on, lads are quickly looking like, well, who's near 30 or
Who's the
who's
oldest?
played
Yeah, yeah,
100
yeah,
times.
yeah.
But like, I don't think that's right. I'm not a believer in that. I think captains should be selected based on who's the best for the job. Like there's two or three young lads in the squad now who I think would be brilliant captains, but I don't think they necessarily need to wait until they're 5 or 6 years older. I'd happily play under them now.
Yeah.
Now, having said that, we have a brilliant captain in Killian Marmion, and I'm in no way suggesting he needs to step aside. I'm just making a wider point, just
Yeah, yeah,
an observation, which hopefully I've
completely.
made
I
clear
completely
there.
agree.
But
Completely agree. Something I know that you're keen to talk about is the role the club plays in the community. Um, like, is that something that's on your mind when you're pulling on a Grey Suns jersey? Like, you're playing for a town, as opposed to maybe other clubs in Dublin who are just a group of players. You know?
yeah, yeah, for me definitely. And I think most of the lads that I've played with in Greystones seem to share the same kind of core values. Like I just think Greystone's a brilliant community club. Represents a whole catchment area when you think about it. Like you've got Bray, Greystones, Kilcool, Newcastle, Newtown, and even further down like we've lads playing from Rathdrum, Wicklow Town.
Wexford, like.
Yeah, so I love that about our club. It's run by people from the community, and the players are from the community. So the family involvement as well is probably massive.
Yeah, because you're part of the Kealy dynasty, but there's other factions in there as well. You have Marmions, O'Connors,
yeah,
Burns. Um, is it a nice feeling knowing both your parents are in the stands and that they're involved in the club?
yeah, it definitely is. I'm lucky that way. They'd up and down the country to watch
Yeah,
me play. But I think the club in a broader sense has that. Like the Marmions you mentioned there, obviously make a massive contribution. The three lads obviously playing, and then Frank is the team doctor, and Kira and their other relatives are at every game. The O'Connors you mentioned there, they're a legendary family in our club. Like Rory was actually president the year I was captain, so we're quite close. And then his wife Jo, who we unfortunately lost a couple of years ago, like she was an incredible influence in the club. She's
so
largely
much for the youth
responsible.
section. Yeah,
Yeah, she's
crazy.
largely responsible for that youth section, which
Yeah,
I think has the most amount of kids in any club in the country. So she probably is. She instilled my love for the club a lot. Like I remember she first got me into being a ball boy for the seniors. At 12 or 11 or 12 years old, and at that age, that's the
you
coolest
get
thing
to
to
put
be
on the
doing.
gear, the Grey
Yeah, yeah.
Stones tracksuit, and you feel like
Throw you a dairy milk after the game, and you think you'd won the lotto or something. So, but she'd go to every senior game up and down the
yeah,
country like I did, and she
yeah,
knew more about rugby than anyone in the club. And yeah, my family have given their fair share of club, which might be putting it lightly, but there's so many other families and volunteers who help out the club. Like it's incredible to see that generosity in the club, and people willing to give their time. Like we're definitely in great hands in that regard as a club. And I just I'd like to think those people know how appreciated they are, because oftentimes it's not said, but maybe
yeah. I
in
know,
something
like
like
it
this
was
it's worth
important for
saying.
you. It's important you really, when we were prepping for this and coming up with ideas and what we talked about, this was the one thing that you wanted to talk about the most and acknowledge the most, was how valuable all those volunteers are.
Yeah,
So
big time, because like it's nice to reminisce about stories and matches, and you can only talk about your personal experience, but my personal experience is the club in that sense. It's far bigger than a game or a win or a medal. It's the volunteers, the family involvement, the role of the club. I touched on it a minute ago, but I think the club has an incredible role in the community. Like I would have played nearly every sport and growing up, particularly in Greystones, and all of those clubs have a connection with the rugby club. I think the volunteers in the rugby club do a great job of, I'd say, connecting with the community. Like we have a lot of sponsorships from a lot of local businesses, which is great to see. You know, you see the amount of people who come down to our games, or the lunches before our games, the amount of outside functions we have, the number of even weddings, christenings, etc. down the club. Like, I think we do a good job of being an active member of the community and creating such a good social environment, not just for young people, but the older guys as well. I think it provides a real good outlet to stay involved in, and given our close proximity to Dublin City, you know, I think it's lovely to see people spend their Friday nights or Saturday afternoons down the club, staying connected to people they grew up with or live beside or met through the club or so on. And maybe this past year has highlighted the fact that we all love the feeling of being a part of something, like belonging to a club, or, you know, meeting for a pint, or watching your boyfriend or girlfriend play on a Sunday afternoon, or bringing the kids down to let them run around the pitches, or heading down for a gym session to clear the head. I just think Greystones has done a great job of that, and is a good member of the community. And, you know, I'd encourage those who have the interest to stay involved in the club as much as they can. They'll always be welcome, you know.
Absolutely, long may it last. Looking forward into the future. You kind of touched on it earlier. You said you want to go as long as you can. I mean, what are you? You're 30 years old now, is that right?
30, yeah.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts? You know, the next 5 years, say, you want to keep playing as long as you can? Would you go into coaching, anything like that?
My answer to that used to change a lot. I'd go back and forth with that. I was actually close, and I touched on it earlier about my injury time and thinking about packing it in, and looking back with regret on that attitude. I was close again when I was kind of 27 or 28, which I suppose isn't that long ago. I don't really know why, but I was thinking of maybe finishing then. But again, I look back on that with regret that I thought that way, and delighted that I didn't go through with that, because I'd like to keep playing on as long as I possibly can, Jared. Now, there's loads of factors. The real reason probably is because last year my best mate passed away, and he asked me to, you know, keep playing for as long as I possibly can, because he would have loved to, and he wasn't unfortunately going to be allowed that opportunity. So we don't need to get into all that, but that's probably my real motivation. But also, you know, I had this great fear of being one of the old lads at the end of the bar talking about, you know, Jesus, if I could dust off the boots one more time, or play one more game, or, you know.
Oh man, that's me every day.
but my fear is that if you give up when you could still play, then you know you've no right to say that, because you're just being a hypocrite. You could have played one more game, but you didn't, you know. And I'm obviously not talking about if injury or family commitments, or like, I'm talking about lads who are just kind of going, oh, I think I've had enough. Grand, but you can't then sit at the bar going, what I'd love to have one more game. So that's just like, once it's
earn your right to sit at the bar. You gotta earn your right to even do this podcast. Like, it's I'd recommend, if I could play until my body completely broke down. Like, unfortunately concussion stopped me, but I'd recommend, like, never stop. Just keep going. If you have to go down and play juniors, keep going. You know,
exactly,
set up a J8 team, play it for them, you know.
Exactly. Yeah, and I completely agree there. I'm not necessarily saying, you know, once I fall out of the senior team, that's it. You know, I've plenty of friends and in the second and third team, so I'd like to play on. But, you know, to answer your question, once it's at all possible, I'd like to play for as long as I can. I've enough time to put the feet up then for the years afterwards. But, you know, guys like Barry Lynn or Ross Bland, they played my position and played into their mid to late 30s. Bobby Clancy played to a similar age. Rob Connolly is still on our team, you know, and he's well up there. So it's not hard to find examples of how to be done.
Yeah, exactly. It's definitely possible. We finish up. I'll ask you a few questions that we're going to ask everybody throughout the series, and kind of, you know, get an idea of different answers. Who's the best trainer you ever had? The best trainer you ever trained with in Greystones?
Back in the day, it would have been maybe James Beery or Dylan Fawcett. I was
going to say him too, yeah.
Of the current crop, I'd probably give it to maybe Owen Marmion. So those three guys spring to mind.
Yeah. Favorite Greystones memory?
Winning the 2016-2017 AIL. Kind of back to that all about winning kind of stuff. But no, I'd have other smaller memories. You know, kind of a couple of matches stand out. Like, Kealy and Willis played with us in 2011 against De La Salle, and we were kind of not going so well, and they were top of the league, and we played them on a Friday night in Greystones, and we beat them quite well. Highfield in 2012. We beat them away in Cork, and we actually stayed down that night and went out in Cork that night. They'd be some good memories. But some of my best memories, Jeremy, are the things we were talking about earlier. My underage team that I was on at a youth level, trips
down to training.
yeah, but like trips to Manchester, Galway, those kind of things. So yeah, a mix.
Toughest match you ever played in?
Oh, I don't know about if I could pinpoint a toughest match. I can remember like some of the most horrible losses. Like I can still think of them. They stick with me a little bit. Like Rainy in 2010, we lost 2018 away, and we were going in under the post at the last play, and things just happened. Didn't get there, and then City of Derry in 2012, we lost in the last play of the game. They scored under the post. We lost 27-24. Highfield just a couple of years ago in 2018, we got promoted, and then we actually got relegated the next year, and we lost 15-13 away to Highfield. And we really played well that day, and we were just pipped, and we would have stayed up. So they're a couple of the toughest matches. The toughest opponents, though, like, Highfield, Old Wesley, even Dungannon, we seem to struggle against. So yeah, it's hard to say the toughest match, but they're some of the toughest or losses I can remember, or the teams that we struggled against.
The best player you ever played with, Greystones?
Conor Cleary is the best player I played with. Yeah, and that probably covers more than Greystones, because I was lucky enough to play with him in school as well. So that's an easy one.
What is about Conor that stands out? I mean, that's a lot of players you played with. I mean, like, that's 12 seasons of rugby, and he's your number one pick.
Yeah, I suppose that's probably a compliment to Conor. Like, and I'm including school there because I played with him in school, but some of the guys I played with in school are on the Irish team now, and I would still say from when I played with them and when I played with Conor, obviously they've gone on to achieve, but no, Conor is he's the best player I played with. What about him? I don't know, Jerry. I don't know if he's going to watch this, so I don't want to give him too many compliments. I just had everything really, but I'm told he's actually back in the country. So
there you go. That's a strategic choice.
You might try and get him down. No,
absolutely, that's right. Open up the checkbook. Well, Kealy, that kind of concludes the interview. Really great to have you on. Absolutely loved it. And then who knows, if this builds a bit of momentum and we get a few seasons out of it, we can have you back when you're 39 and you can look back at your career and tell us all about it. But
I might still be playing, Jeremy, so there'll be no looking back.
Yeah, you might have a few more seasons than you then. But look, really appreciate it. Thank you so much. It's been great talking to you, and we'll speak again soon. All right.
Yeah, no, look, thanks very much for having me on, Jeremy, and listen, fair play to you for getting an initiative like this set up. I know it can be quite quiet down the clubs at the moment with the way the world is, but I think this is a really cool idea, and fair play to you for getting it set up. It'd be cool to stay in touch and see where it goes. I haven't seen many other clubs try something like this, so as I said at the start, I'm sure there's some brilliant and exciting guests lined up that will certainly trump me. But no, thanks for asking me to be on, and hopefully it kicks on from here, and we'll keep an eye out.
Absolutely, great stuff. Thanks so much, Kealy.
Thanks, Jeremy. Cheers.